timing literally could not be more perfect for him to join our show. We have U.S. Congressman Greg Casar from Texas with us today. Congressman, thank you for joining us.
Good afternoon, everybody.
So everybody is focused on Texas at the moment. The governor has, during the special session, is obviously trying to ram through this midterm gerrymander. Can you tell our audience a little bit about just what exactly is going on and what he's trying to do and why that's so unusual?
Yeah, I mean, probably nothing new here to your listeners that Trump is the most corrupt president in American history. But then we've got Ken Paxton here, the most corrupt politician in Texas history. And they have this corrupt scheme to change our election rules, radically redraw and re-gerrymander Texas so that they can rig the upcoming midterm elections before anybody gets a chance to cast a ballot. And essentially, that's their way of covering up for Trump jacking up your prices, Trump basically taking your taxpayer money and handing it to his wealthy buddies in the form of ridiculous tax breaks. He doesn't have a plan for winning the election, but he does have this plan for changing the rules before anybody gets a chance to have a say about it. To give you a sense, I'm here in Austin, Texas, my home city, where he's connecting some parts of the northern Austin area out to Midland, Odessa, think like far west Texas, and then parts of the South Austin metro area out to Port Aransas. It's like an 8-hour drive between those two places.
Jeez.
And what's worst about it all, as if that's not bad enough, is that the way he's doing it is by intentionally violating the Voting Rights Act of 1965. He's drawing districts that were intentionally made illegal by LBJ signing that law back in 1965. I mean, he handed the pen that he signed that law with to Martin Luther King. That law of 1965 was meant to ban things like this. Trump is purposefully doing it, hoping that a complicit Supreme Court will allow him to do it here in Austin and then spread that kind of practice across America.
Yeah, I mean, it's really terrible. And for our listeners, like midterm gerrymander or redistricting is not a thing that happens. It
doesn't happen. Yeah, it's not supposed to happen. You're supposed to do it every census, which is like a few years ago.
I think it's every 10 years. It's congressionally mandated, constitutionally mandated, actually. So this mid thing is, and he's only able, I think the shameless part of it, the part that really drives me crazy is that they are only able to do it, correct me if I'm wrong, because they had this special session to deal with all of the flood response. And then they decided to make this a big partisan game by trying to pull this nonsense. Is that
right?
Is that
Instead
correct?
of doing flood relief for the folks right up the road from where I'm sitting, they're doing radical political redistricting. And I think it's really shown that these Texas Republicans, instead of having a backbone, are just really Donald Trump's water boys, doing whatever it is he asks instead of caring for their own constituents in the midst of a horrific disaster. They're just over here trying to figure out how to cover for Donald Trump's electoral failures.
And what we're seeing, I think, is the way that they have proposed this. I think it would be the elimination of 5 congressional districts that Democrats currently control, including Jasmine Crockett, I believe. Is that correct?
Well, they've moved Jasmine Crockett's home, I believe, outside of her district.
Right.
But she believes that she could still, they moved most people outside of their own district that are Democrats, but they've essentially still, I believe that Congresswoman Crockett would still kind of be able to run and win in a core central Dallas district. But they have eliminated a Latino majority district in the Houston area. They've eliminated a district of mostly people of color in the Fort Worth area. And then mine in the Austin area, Austin, San Antonio, Central Texas area, eliminated the Latino district in their proposal here, and essentially are merging my district with Congressman Lloyd Doggett's district. Right. But at the end of the day, like, the future of me or Lloyd Doggett or any other member of Congress isn't the biggest thing we've got to worry about. I'm worried about the futures of millions of people in Texas who could have their votes essentially suppressed here. And if they're able to do it here in Texas, Donald Trump's already said he wants to go to Missouri next, then Ohio, then Louisiana or Alabama. And so that's why I think it's so important that these brave Texas legislators are putting up the fight of their lives right now here in Texas.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about that. So in order to break the quorum on the special session, they had to leave the state. and they are currently in Illinois, I believe. How long can they keep that up, and what can we do to help them?
Yeah, I mean, these Texas Democrats are heroes. They're democracy defenders. I know a lot of folks listening and watching at home have been searching for those Democrats that are willing to actually really put it all on the line in this moment of growing authoritarianism. And that's what Texas Democrats are doing. They're putting it on the line. And I hope their courage inspires courage of other elected officials, because they can't be gone forever, right? Their families and their jobs are back here. And so they're buying us critical time. But their courage, if it inspires courage from governors, like we're seeing the courage of Governor Gavin Newsom saying he will redistrict California in retaliation and show Republicans we're willing to fight fire with fire. If we could spread that courage to Maryland and to Washington State and to everybody else listening at home, to your governor, then I think this quorum break could lead to Greg Abbott taking a step back, slowing this down, maybe not passing this horrific map if Republican members of Congress and other states see that their job is on the line. So that's part of why this quorum break is so strategic and why I'm so grateful to the Texas Democrats in the legislature that are doing it. Those of us in Congress, we're mostly here in the state organizing, pushing back with our constituents, and it's our state representatives that had to leave the state and go to places like Illinois and New York and Massachusetts to be able to stand up for the rest of us.
So I want to ask a question. What do you think the odds are that Abbott backs off here? Because I agree with the strategy. I think like what Newsom is doing is setting the right tempo and tone. Obviously, they see that there's a lot of trouble ahead if they go down this road. You know Abbott, I'm sure, way better than this panel does. So I'm curious. You look at the situation, you see the fire ahead of them. Are they going to walk through it, or are they going to back off it?
Look, Greg Abbott is a craven and cowardly politician. And when they get put in a corner, they start acting real crazy. And that's what you're seeing from Governor Abbott right now. Governor Abbott, this afternoon, we are here on Monday, August 4th, is threatening this afternoon to unilaterally remove from office basically all Texas Democrats. That's where he's at right now.
Insane.
And I'll just ask everybody listening to just take a step back and imagine we're talking about another country where you have a corrupt president that is worried about losing an election, and so he's asking to rig the election rules. And then a political ally of that corrupt president then threatens to remove the entire opposition party from office in order to get it done. You and I would probably say that that country's democracy is in really, really deep trouble. Yes. But that's what's happening right now in America, right now in Texas. You have Greg Abbott saying he wants to create a single party state in Texas by unilateral action. It's hard to not sound alarmist, but I want folks to let that sink in, that that's where we are. And as he acts that way, acts more and more scared, we have to not act intimidated. And I think that's how you eventually get a bully to back down, is when they're at their most crazy. Let them continue to hurt themselves and hopefully bring people along onto our team.
I think the gambit that they're trying to take here is they're trying to provoke riots. I mean, I try to imagine being in the mind of these people as they are just like, we are going to completely disenfranchise basically most of the black and brown voters in the state of Texas. I think that they are trying to provoke riots. I think that a guy like Stephen Miller looks at the summer of 2020 in the racial reckoning that we had nationwide. And he saw the way that Fox News and the rest of the right-wing disinformation networks covered what was happening. And he saw in his base people frothing at the mouth for violence. We saw like Kyle Rittenhouse come out and how he became a hero for the right. I think that as the Trump administration is moving just insane amounts of money over to ICE, and they are trying to do things like just completely rig future elections, they are hoping that people feel hopeless and come to the streets, and that violence gets provoked so that they can accelerate things. That is, I think, the only rational way that I can imagine that they're looking at this. They have to know that if they just completely disenfranchise an entire party, and they try and do it across the nation, that people are going to freak out. This is the most direct and the most consequential attack on our republic, on our democracy that we have seen thus far. And their plan that they've already announced is to continue taking steps forward.
Well, it's a classic authoritarian playbook to point to demonstrations and then any act of violence, whether it's actually, people on one side or another, as an excuse for an even bigger power grab. And so that's part of why we can't fall into Greg Abbott's trap. We do need to make sure people can come together and publicly assemble and make grievances heard in the longest, most patriotic tradition that we have. But we've got to look out for each other, stick tight, and make sure that we don't allow provocateurs to incite anyone, because that is part of what I believe a Stephen Miller, as you just described, would want. And so today, I'm calling for a picket, a classic labor organizing, peaceful but pissed picket at Governor Greg Abbott's mansion. And we're going to be there, and we're going to make sure it stays organized and that our message is heard, because we can't be scared and just lock up at home scared. But we also can't fall into their trap where they want to be able to point out any act that might turn off the average viewer that isn't watching politics as closely. We've got to make sure our message is really clear out there.
I think the way that you framed that as peaceful but pissed is perfect. That is,
well, I
that
mean,
is right on the money.
I just happened right here with you guys here on Find Out Pod. Just you're made up right here on the top of my head.
Yeah,
I love it.
We're gonna have to make a T-shirt out of that.
I was going to say peaceful but pissed.
But I think you're 100% right, and I think the thing that we have to remember is that Trump's new nickname is Taco for a reason. Trump always chickens out.
Yeah.
If there is a groundswell of support across the country for Texas Democrats, and I think you said Gavin Newsom's like, well, if you want me to make all of the districts in California blue, I'm going to do it if you're going to play this game. And we haven't mentioned Kathy Hochul yet, but she came out today pretty strongly. Our situation in New York's a bit different because it won't be affected. We can't do it in 2026, but we can do it in 2028. She basically said game on today. And I think this is a sign to Democrats, and I want to get your take on this, Congressman, but that people respond to strong leaders. Like we have been saying, a lot of us on this side have been saying for a long time that like one of the Democrats' problems is that we're like, oh, well, it's the process and I can't I don't want to mess with anything. But like I feel we are well beyond that. I'm curious about your take. Like, I think people want fighters right now. And I think fighters are what people want to follow fighters. And I think people are tired of it. And I think most Democrats are waking up to the fact that we can't just play the process game anymore unless we don't want to live in a democracy anymore.
Yeah, this is a moment where the Democratic Party brand is at some of its lowest ratings in recorded history.
Yep.
But then will be places hundreds or thousands of miles away from my district. I was recently in Tucson, Arizona with Bernie Sanders and AOC. And we thought we were pulling up to the high school gym in 6 or 7 blocks where we were going to have this rally. But there was a line just covering the streets. So I said, maybe to the cab driver, maybe we're already at the high school. And he said, no, that's still on my thing way far away. It was the line to get in. 25,000 people took over the entire football field. It was the biggest rally in Arizona history. And I think it's because people are looking for fighters, not folders. Right. And so the Texas Democrats right now, I think, are fighting so hard. They're leaving behind their families. They're leaving behind their paying jobs, because the legislature sure isn't a real paying job in the state of Texas, to fight. Right. And I hope that inspires more governors to fight. I wish we were in a place where California having an independent commission inspired the Greg Abbotts and Donald Trumps of the world to do the right thing. But we don't live in that world, right? Where you show up as a Boy Scout or a Girl Scout and they just respect that, right? No. Like, we are not in a Harvard moot court contest here, right? Like, it is a real fight to protect people's lives and people's ability to choose their own leaders. And so I think that California should say, California will have an independent commission when Texas does. Yes. That New York will have one when Florida does. Mm-hmm. We've got to get to national ends to gerrymandering, not a world where Democrats confine ourselves to one set of rules that everybody agrees to, and then Governor Greg Abbott and Donald Trump can just run everybody over. I mean, that's not a way that you deal with bad faith opponents.
No, and I think, look, like they've now tried to trample on democracy twice, right? Like January 6th was a coup attempt on our free and fair election in 2020. And they all kind of just were like, oh, whatever, it's just a peaceful protest. And now we're seeing this again with this midterm, like unprecedented power play. And I think for our listeners, like we have the power and the voice now, but like if we allow these things to happen, we won't. Like we can have all the rallies in the world, but if our districts are like a piece of string across, like we won't have any electoral power.
You just can't make it happen.
Yep.
Exactly. So, and I know you're very busy, and you're off to another thing real quick, but I want to end with this. Like, we mentioned talking to your governors about, looking at doing this gerrymandering. What else should people be doing? I know there's I don't know electorally if you could talk about this right now, but I know there's like a fund for these folks to make sure there are resources. What's the best thing that people could do right now?
Yeah, you can check out the Texas Justice Fund. Is an important place to be looking at. You could also look for these Texas legislators online. Just give them an online high five. Just amplify what it is they're saying, because it's a lonely time sometimes for folks. And so make sure they're not forgotten and help them out. And then if we're going to do everything we can to stop this plan, if they're able to get it through, we can't let them get it through without a serious cost. So we need to make sure that Democrats all over the country are paying attention to Texas, because we need to run in these districts and make sure that these Republican members of Congress who may have thrown their own constituents and their own districts under the bus, all for Donald Trump, that they don't just get an easy path to re-election. So we're going to be recruiting candidates in those districts, funding those candidates, and making sure that we actually run again as Democrats up and down the ticket in Texas. In my own area in Central Texas, they've merged my district with my neighboring congressman's district. We're not taking that lying down. We're not letting Latino voters and Black voters just be disenfranchised that way. Who knows how they'll keep changing the districts moving forward here in the coming days or weeks of this battle. But we're not going anywhere. We're here in Texas, and we need help from people all across the country.
Great. Well, Congressman, thank you very much for giving us a few minutes of your very busy time. Our supporters are with you. We're going to keep on this one, make sure everybody is aware of what's going on, and probably pressuring some of these other states to do the same. So, Congressman, thank you very much, and best of luck to you. You're doing a great job, and we really, really appreciate your time.
Thank you, guys. So grateful to you.